fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh. Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Gotta love this time of year. Only one can be champion. Let's go playoff racing. I said, hey, hey, oh, hey, hey. There's no surrender. Let 'em hear my battle cry. 40 of the best sim racers, $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello one and all, and welcome to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for round 2 of the Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. This is the series that lets Australian and New Zealand sim racers bring their best GT equipment to this race, and we've got one coming up in front of us that we are very, very much looking forward to. Qualifying has already run. It's the warm-up now for all of these drivers before we get started into round 2 here at beautiful Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. I'm David Haynes, and joining me for this broadcast is going to be Ryan Jones. Ryan, welcome to SimSpeed TV. Your expectations for this race ahead of us?
Good evening, David. Good evening, everyone at home, and thank you. It's an honour to be up here in the SimSpeed booth. I'm excited for this race. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm keen to see how much action we're going to see out on track. I think last race was a pretty action-packed affair, and looking out for more of the same tonight. I'm thinking maybe Gallon might be able to capitalise on his good starting spot today, unlike last time out.
Indeed. Bumper grid that we've got, I'm seeing as many as maybe 45, 46 cars to take the start of this race, and that always means a bit of excitement. And this course, it's a little bit shorter than some others there. We see it's 3.5 kilometers, so the laps come around quick in this 45-minute race we've got ahead of us. And that means we're going to have a good lap count here. Some of that information up on your screen as well about Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, where I was this weekend, humble brag. And you see that a 50% fuel tank limit means we are likely to see drivers need one fuel stop in this race, depending on if we stay green the entire duration, depending on what the drivers can do with a feather on the right-hand pedal. But we'll have an eye out for that one, no doubt. A little bit about the weather. You can already see a bit overcast around here. Mostly cloudy sky for today's race. That track temperature, that's key. 32.8 degrees Celsius. That's not too bad. That's Goldilocks temperature. Not too cold, not too hot. And I don't think we'll see tyre wear be a massive issue over a sprint race like this with temperatures like that. A little bit breezy from the southwest, but I'm sure the drivers will be able to deal with that. as the warm-up continues and we head towards our race session. Ryan, we've got a couple of different manufacturers here that drivers could pick from.
We do. We got 4 manufacturers in this field. That's what I love about GT racing. You've got 4 different manufacturers in iRacing. These cars all so different when you look at them, but the BOP works well and we end up with some very nice, close racing.
Yep, that we certainly do, and we were looking at a Ford, we're looking at a Ferrari now. Benjamin Johnson coming through these sweeping uphill, downhill sections, and there's quite a few parts around the backside of the circuit here where you really you got to just trust you know which direction the course goes in front of you. Plenty of undulation here, which is atypical of Ohio, which is a pretty flat state. So this is a sports car course set in a fantastic little corner of Ohio. So, it's new series sponsor for GT Leagues Australia, Sprint Series Australasia this season, and we've got a little word from them now.
There are lots of opportunities to grow in Epiroc, no matter what background you come from. I come from a technical background and I now work in HR. This is what inspires me.
And Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. We thank them for their support of this series as we now look to our starting grid for round 2 of the Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. And on the front row is Luis Polo Gallon and Alexander Bird. That is going to be spicy into turn 1. Or after the start of the race, because this is a unique starting location sometimes. Reece Gasol and John Peasnick are row 2, and behind them, Zach Hanlon and Anthony Winkleman. Row 4 is Philip Worley and Michael Healy, and I'll throw to Ryan Jones for the next 4 rows.
Riding out the top 10, Jackson Susan Harlow and Sam Sutton. Then it's Trent Thomas and Brett Cananzi for Trick Sim Sports and Eclipse Sim Sports. Ross Rizzo and Bradley Ratu, 13th and 14th, and it's Adam Briggs and Scott Slowski, 15th and 16th.
A little bit further back is Dominic Ferraris and Darren Lobb, and then Cameron Stubber and Daniel Misdale as our pace car pulls away, and we're getting started soon. It's Justin Wallace and Ryan Jarrett on row 11, and then behind them, Reese Keane, Thomas Hinz, and the rest of our starters will cycle through on your screen. The Porsche 911 GT3 safety car now rolling. Our drivers getting ready for the start of this 45-minute race. I think we'll see the green flag this time because the safety car is in and they are go for 45 minutes around Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Some of the cars in the background still snaking their way through the carousel, but a great start there from Luis Polo Gallon, who jumps clear of Alexander Bird. The two of them race towards turn 2, the keyhole. Everyone pretty well cleanly through turn 2, but I might have to take that back because there's 2 cars on the grass and someone didn't even get to the green flag. So a little bit of action already. Scott Soslowski, that is a very bold rejoin. He just gets away with it, but Reece Gasol is in the gravel trap, Ryan.
Not a fantastic start for Reece Gasol there. He'll be ruined that one. He's gone off on the exit of turn number 2 and off into the gravel, as you can see. But back to the leaders, it's still Luis Gallon leading this race, Alexander Bird. Zachary Hanlon in 5th place at the moment. He's held a starting spot. He's got Anthony Winkleman right in his mirrors, flashing his lights.
Side by side for some Trick Sim Sports teammates over the hill, and you can go side by side through here, but it costs you an incredible amount of time, and you can see the cars stacking up behind them there. They work their way through sort of up the hill towards the carousel. Another corner around this course with several different lines. There's a tight line, there's a wide line, there's diamond and off, but whichever one Luis Polo Gallon took, it's working out for him in the lead. Here comes a modem simulation replay of that start. Looking at Reece Gasol and Scott Soslowski, and what happens there? Difficult to see from this angle. And Gasol gets just the lightest of taps on the rear quarter panel there from Zach Hanlon. Zach Hanlon carries on no dramas whatsoever, but for Reece Gasol, that sent him around, and he had to watch the whole field go before he could get rolling once again. How do you read that one, Ryan?
That's an unfortunate one for him, I think. First lap, probably a bit of a racing incident, that one. My eye got caught by the two cars that sped off to the infield on the straightaway behind them as well, so that was an interesting one behind as well. So we go back live, watching Zachary Hamlin as well, I believe. Oh, this is Joe Piesnick and Anthony Winkleman for third and fourth. Oh, and there's more trouble back in the pack. That's Gardner.
Yeah, Adam Gardner, you can see from the ticker there, losing spots after spots as he's gone around in the middle section of the track. And we look further back, the racing continues to be furious. Trent Thomas from Trick Sim Sports around as well. A little bit of contact all through the field. Plenty of drivers having some struggles.
It's a simple track on paper, but when you get onto it, it's a very difficult track to get right sometimes. As Trent Thomas shows us there, around he goes all by himself. Does a good job not to go too far off track and keeps it out of the racing line as well.
Yeah, as the Podium simulation replay showed us, I don't think he got much help with that. It must have been just two wheels on the grass. And Adam Gardner from China Beach and then over the hill at Madness, trying to go around the outside and maybe squeeze down a little bit too tight. Maybe 2 into 1 just did not go that time. Still watching this replay from on board with Joshua Burden, and I think he was overlapped the entire time there and just didn't quite have a car's width to the inside. I can't really, from that angle, from one viewing, fault Joshua Burden there. And of course, these are some big wide cars, and this circuit is not as wide as some others you might expect to see GTE cars racing at. This circuit was built in the 1950s and has maintained the layout since then, so that's not quite like some of the brand new circuits we might see, like Circuit of the Americas or others like that. This is a sports car course with some history, and some things tradition is better not messed with.
Love a bit of tradition in motorsport. We see it absolutely everywhere, and sometimes indeed you don't want to mess with it. We're looking at Zachary Hamlin still trying to fend off Michael Healy, who's got Philip Worley right in behind him. This is a big angry pack of cars, a 5th on back to about 10th place, I think that is.
Yeah, plenty of cars in that train there. And we look on board from Ross Rizzo, a multiple-time champion in the Sprint Series Australia. And he is trying to gain a couple of positions because he's a teeny bit deeper in the field than maybe we'd expected. He's the kind of driver who always runs well during the race. Side by side, Hamlin on the outside, and he gets wheels on the grass. And that has cost him at least one spot. Here comes a Porsche trying to take that spot back. No, still side by side, little tap, little slide, and side by side through this S's and over the hill is not easy to do, and in the end, spot is lost. And Philip Worley, DPR Racing, that's the car I was looking at. He's trying to grab a spot. Another one of the Logitech G Altus Esports BMWs grabs a little bit of grass as well. So Jackson Suzlin-Harlow, recent signing to Altus Esports, and he's trying to make an impression in those colours.
Certainly is. Almost made the wrong kind of impression there, going around that corner. Almost lost it, put it in the wall. Did a fantastic job to save it though. And now we're looking on board with Brett Cananzi for Eclipse Sim Sport, staring at that rear end of that BMW right in front of him. This train of cars going to make the way to turn number 2. Healy and Zachary Hamlin have sorted themselves out. That was fantastic racing. But out front, Louise Polo Gallen still fending off from Alexander Bird. The gap 4/10 of a second last time around. Bit of dirt being kicked up there as they make their way around that kink on that back straightaway. And it's John Piesnick going defensive from Anthony Winkleman for 3rd place.
Yeah, Piesnick and Winkleman, that's the longest straight on the circuit, leads into the hardest braking zone almost. But then from here all the way around to the carousel as we ride on board, you see it's undulation, it's sweeping corners, it's one line. And Philip Worley, who was doing so well in that top 10, he is around. And of course, a modem simulation replay will tell us how that happened. He's running very well in the top 10, trying to pressure Zach Hamlin. What has gone wrong? I think both of those cars have committed a bit too hard to the braking zone. You saw Hamlin was almost 2 wheels in the grass, and Worley followed him all the way there and ended up spinning to avoid the contact. So those two drivers must have been battling very, very hard on the brakes into turn 3 or 4. And Dominic Ferraris also having some adventures. 45 minutes of racing is plenty to pack in a lot of action. We've only just gotten going.
Yeah, proving to be another action-packed race as always. I'll tell you what, Zachary Hanlon was incredibly lucky not to get tagged in the right rear by Worley there as he went around. That could have put both of them to the rear of the field. Lucky escape for Hanlon as Winkleman. Is he close enough to make the move up the inside? He's not quite going to get there. Going to sit back as they make the way around the right-hander and back in behind them. Zachary Hanlon coming under fire from Sutton. Shows the nose down to the inside. Cannot get the move done this time by as Harlow is up into 8th place behind them.
Yeah, Zach Hanlon forming his own little train here still as Philip Worley's gone immediately. Sam Sutton becomes the driver to apply the pressure. Now has the teammate of Zach Hanlon behind him. So fantastic battles in the top 10. The only driver in the top 10 not in a battle is Michael Healy. So everyone else is looking out the front window, looking in the mirrors, looking in the rear cameras, and maybe thinking about their fuel consumption, thinking about their tyre strategy. Green flag racing all the way so far, and if it does stay green, we do anticipate most drivers will have to make a pit stop for some fuel. So we'll see how that one plays out. We look a little bit deeper in the field at some of the battles, and no shortage of action as I look at my timing screen. Red boxes all the way down to 30th place, and Thomas Hinz is now in the pit lane now. Is this for damage? Is this a alternate strategy? Not sure what he's doing, but the battle continues for the lead. Bird just following in the slipstream of Luis Paulo Gallon. We haven't seen him have a good opportunity to try and strike for the lead if that's what he wants to do now.
Yeah, he might try and get it done as soon as he can, but he also might try and sit there and save a little bit of fuel in behind Luis Paulo Gallon as well. Of course, in the slipstream he can save a little bit, come off the throttle just a bit, make it a bit easier for your engine to power through that air. But at the moment, as you say, just sitting there doing exactly that. He might want to wait till after the pit stop phase as well, maybe try and overcut or undercut him as he gets very close into the second last corner there. Not quite close enough, and not much when overtaking that spot, that one either.
Yeah, if Gallon is slow through there, it's a very difficult place for Bird to get around. He'd have to try and set up a move somewhere else and get ahead. I mean, it's just a corner where you can park the car on the apex, and it is a long way round on the carousel. But Gallon, again, looking to struggle just a little bit through the keyhole. Bird sets up a later apex. Does that let him get the throttle open earlier? It does, and he's closer than he's been in a long time. And if these two battle hard, you can see Piesnik and Winkleman in the background as well, riding on board with Gallon towards the braking zone. He's going to defend the inside, should make Bird go around the outside, which becomes the inside up the hill again. A great sequence of corners, but I think Gallon will just keep the Ford GT in front of the BMW for now. And it's a brave, or maybe needs to be committed man who would make any move between here and turn 1. So we look at the battle, 3rd and 4th, 2 BMWs, and Winkleman again putting the pressure on Piesnik. I think if anything, Piesnik might be slightly catching the cars in front.
Yeah, it looks like he is about a tenth of a second quicker last time round than your race leader, Luis Paulo Gallon. At the moment, if they keep doing what they're doing, they will catch up and make it a 4-way battle for the lead of this race. But as it stands, 2 packs of 2 battling for 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Winkleman and Bird both look like they respectively have the pace over the 2 cars in front of them. But right now, on this track, where really the first half of laps are the only place you can really overtake, not able to get the move done.
Yeah, indeed. So, deeper in that pack, we were looking at the battle for 6. Hanlon side by side with Sam Sutton. Sutton trying to go around the outside. Didn't work for Joseph Newgarden this weekend, spoiler alert, but it sets up a much better run for Sam Sutton, and he gets his nose towards the inside. Better drive, BMW side by side, and oh, they nearly rub. 2 very beautiful looking paint schemes, but together I'm not sure how well they would work. Hanlon too deep on the brakes around the outside, into the grass, just keeps it out of China Beach. He's going to rejoin it, a very difficult spot for that car behind, and the Trick Sim Sport car, Ross Rizzo, also having some dramas there. So into turn 4, not easy for everyone. We'll take another look at that, how the pass went for 6th and 7th. And what Ross Rizzo has done is he's just been caught out looking at what Hanlon was doing and lost it all by himself, Ryan.
Quite possibly, a bit too much brake pressure being applied on those rear brakes, just pinching and sending him into a spin, which he did a fantastic job to control, not go all the way around, loses a bit of time, but he should be able to fight back from that one as we look on, as Burden and Szlowski go so very close together and almost make contact. Szlowski just has to back off there, doesn't want to spin out that car in front of him, and this is a big pack as well, 5, 6, 7 cars involved in this one too. Big packs of cars battling all the way down this field right now.
Just shows that passing is not particularly easy. The slipstream having just enough of an effect to keep these cars packed up. We look at another battle side by side through the keyhole, and in this time, Adam Briggs just can't hold the slide. The driver in front of him, I think that was Reese Keane, Justin Wallace, my apologies. All 4 tyres in the grass, but kept his foot in the throttle and gets a little bit more speed down the longest straightaway and into the best overtaking opportunity. That one will continue for now. Not able to keep the Porsche planted through the keyhole as we look back up towards the lead.
It's still Gallon from Bird, no change there. Gallon still managing to hold him off and still proving to be a little bit slow for that penultimate corner. Maybe just trying to back it up to get that run down the main straight and not allow Bird to make an opportunistic move, it would be, if he was to try it into turn number 1. But it is a passing spot if you have enough of a run. That time by, certainly not close enough. Just having a look to see what the lap times were last time around, and again, Bird was a 1/10 of a second quicker than Gallon, so he's closing the gap back up again.
And critically behind them, John Peasnick and Anthony Winkleman also doing pretty similar pace, but look at the pit lane. Suddenly it's a bit busy. Martin Silvassi in, Scott Solosky in. That was one of the battles we were looking at, and Kyle Raper too is in the lane. So a few drivers maybe deciding that right now is time to get out of that traffic, take the little bit of fuel they might need to get to the end, and then if they can find some clean air, put in some quick lap times. But with how many jumped into the lane all at once, they'll probably all come out and form up their own little pack. So maybe damned if you do, damned if you don't, but you cannot disparage some of these drivers for just trying something different and just trying to shake it up and take a risk.
Only a 45-minute race, so sometimes, a lot of the times, you do have to take a gamble, take a punt on a strategy and hope it turns out well for you. There's not too much room to wiggle with these short 45-minute sprint races, so you've really got to take your opportunities when they come. Just trying to have a look at what the pit stop times were for those guys. Pretty fast there for Alex Cord, only a 31-second pit stop for him. 22 seconds actually for Cameron Dance, he had a fantastic stop too.
Yeah, unfortunately on my end, not able to see what the pit stop stationary time was to take a guess at how much fuel these guys would need to take on board. I'm seeing 7.3 seconds from some, so that is indeed a pretty short stop. No tyres in a sprint race like this. They would take 20 or so seconds to change, and you're not going to gain back 15 seconds lost with just a new set of tyres towards the end. A few drivers may be reacting to what was happening earlier with the other drivers on pit lane, so a couple more come into the lane this time. We look at the lead. Will either of these guys jump from the carousel into the pit entry? Not sure, but Luis Polo Gallon was far more confident over the crest of the hill there. Bird lost a couple car lengths, but now he gains it back to come over this crest and into the carousel. You imagine that your leaders will stay out as long as possible as the drivers buried deeper in the pack that might be thinking about that early pit stop. And suddenly, John Peasnick has pulled a little bit of a gap on Anthony Winkleman and is getting a little bit closer to the front two, I think. Yeah, 2/10 on that lap. He closed in on Luis Polo Gallon.
Fantastic job for Peasnick on that lap to open up that gap. As you look back, Jackson Harlow trying to fend off from Canenzi, shows nose down to the inside, don't think he's close enough, and wisely does not go for that move, trying to set up maybe a run out of this turn number 2, but he's not going to get it. A good run for Jackson Harlow down onto the longest straight of the track, as you mentioned earlier on, and he's going to hold him off for at least another couple of corners. He can't overtake the rest of this track pretty much.
Yeah, it's a very glaring error from the driver in front for you to be able to pass anywhere between turn 4 and the last corner. Modem simulation replay though, this is up at the lead. Luis Polo Gallon, Alexander Bird, great run from Bird. Gallon defends again as they head towards the braking zone for turn 4, and there's just one car's width on the outside of Luis Polo Gallon, but Alexander Bird could not find the traction out there. But of course that's cost both of those drivers even more time. Peasnick must be even closer now. It's definitely 3 cars in the battle for the lead. How close is Winkelmann? Just lurking in the background. But Piesnik is making his run to maybe try and take away the lead of this race before it's pit stops for our leaders.
It's turning into a juicy battle up front, and it should be an intriguing finish to this race after they make their pit stops as well. And Harlow still fending off from Canenzi, drops a couple tyres off in the exit to turn number 1. Again, doesn't look like he's going to be close enough into turn 2. Can he set up the run this time around? Again, going to try and open up the entry, cut back on the exit, but not going to execute it particularly well. And again, Harlow, good run.
Indeed. Again, 2 tyres on the grass, and there's not a lot of tarmac runoff around here because that is not how it was when they built this circuit. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is a real old school course in that manner. I'm looking up the front again, and Gallon qualified really well in that Ford, but it's just not racing quite as well. Looked a bit uncomfortable there. He was a bit wide of the apex. The body language of the car, it's working for him still. The front 4 are pulling away from the rest, but the 3 cars behind him are looking ominously in his mirror. Neil Pearson, bit of a half spin there for him. Here's what happened. Modem simulation replay. Ryan, talk us through it.
Come down this long straight in behind the slower car, pulls out of the way all by himself. He must have done this by himself. Surely your car gets to the middle of the corner, the rear end just steps out, trying to take too much speed through that corner, I would suspect, and the car unable to comply and says, nope, you're going off track today, mate.
Indeed, looking rearward from Luis Polo Gallon, your race leader once again at the Trick Sim Sports BMW of Alexander Bird, and you couldn't see Piesnik behind, but he is right there, and I think Winkelmann also closing in as well now. So these are some absolute classic names in this series. Gallon, Bird, Piesnik, Winkelmann. These are the kind of guys we expect to see battling for the lead of this race, and indeed they are doing that. Winkelmann was the fastest of the 4 last time around, so this pack is closing up. We've had 20 minutes or so of racing now, and there's nothing to separate the top 4. I think the pit stop times are going to be incredibly critical for everyone in this top 4. Who can get a jump through the pit lane? And there's some traffic in front of them. Luis Polo Gallon getting on the headlight flashes to say, hey, I'm coming through, but it's not easy to get through traffic around the back half of this circuit, as I think Felix Rosenqvist discovered this weekend.
Yeah, this laps car of Alex Court should be able to get out of the way coming out of turn number 1 and down this little short chute into turn 2. We'll see if he does indeed pull off, whether he tries not to, as Bird shows the nose to Luis Polo Gallon, reminds him he is still there, he is still hungry to make the overtake for lead of the race, getting right up onto the curb on the inside of turn 2, over that crest, down onto the back straight they go, still in behind Alex Court there. I think Gallon might be getting a little bit antsy, hoping he gets out of the way before they get to the middle sector of this track, where it is almost a single racing line. There he goes, up the inside for turn number 3, sorry. Alex Court gets out of the way, stays on the outside, and all 4 of those leading group cars move by with relative ease.
Alex Court is experienced in this series, and he'd know that it's not his place to be trying to ruin the race of these leaders, and he does indeed let them all through. And this battle is basically how it was before they encountered this traffic. Gallon leading from Bird, from Piesnik, from Winkelmann. And I wonder how long on fuel they can go. We've seen everyone needs to take a stop if it stays like it is. We do anticipate. I wonder if we'll see these guys waiting until maybe only 10 minutes to go before they dive into that lane. 7 seconds of fuel isn't a whole lot. That's only just a couple laps of fuel. And from 5th place behind them, Michael Healy jumps into the pit lane. So he's decided that that's what he's going to do, and might even end up sharing some of his learnings with his Trick Sim Sports colleagues, 2 of whom are in this top 4 battle pack for the lead.
Yeah, something I found with a bit of GT racing I've dabbled in myself. Certainly no expert, but I do believe running the car as long as you can, get the car as light as possible, which in theory should make it as fast as possible, and then of course dive in and top it up with as little fuel as you can possibly get away with, and you end up running a lighter car for as long as you possibly can in the race, which should equate to a faster strategy.
Indeed, that's the on-paper fastest way to do it, but sometimes you end up in traffic and you just need to shuffle up the strategy. Michael Healy has had a very long pit stop. We saw him come onto the lane, we then flicked back to the leaders, but on pit lane has not been the 7 seconds of fuel he was maybe wanting to take. Was there speeding on the way into the pit lane? Did he have something miscommunicated with his pit crew? 10 seconds stop, so just taking a little bit more fuel on board than some of the other drivers, and maybe what we'd expected, especially from Trick Sim Sports, known for saving just a little bit of fuel here, there, and where they can, and trying to play that strategy game. Maybe hasn't worked out for Healy, but more cars from inside the top 10 now deciding to come down onto pit road. Sam Sutton was one of them. A little bit more traffic for your top 4 again. Luis Polo Gallon will be flashing those headlights on the Ford, I'm sure, if he feels like he's going to be impeded at all. A lot of pressure from behind. Does not want to be held up, does not want to be bottled backwards into that car of Alexander Bird. And all 4 of our leaders get through cleanly this time.
Sam Sutton has jumped Michael Healy in the pit stop, so a disastrous pit stop for Michael Healy there. Goes back in behind Sam Sutton. He sits about a second and a half behind him as well. So a big loss there for the Trick Sim Sports driver with his 10-second pit stop.
Yeah, that's interesting and not what we would typically expect from Trick Sim Sports. So I'm sure that information will be relayed to Alex Bird, who's battling for the lead, and he needs the best pit stop he can get. And so will Luis Polo Gallon when it becomes time for these 2 to pit. A second would be winning or losing for either of these 2. And even for the drivers behind them there, like Peasnick, he needs a good stop, and he needs to be just a little bit closer to Gallon when those pit stops come if he's going to have any hope of being able to jump them. Maybe he will stop a lap earlier, maybe he can go a lap longer. We don't know yet, and I think that is where the race will be won or lost for these top 4, because for now, a couple of laps in a row, we haven't been able to see any passes between them. It might just come down to the pit strategy.
Yeah, it certainly could. It is a difficult track to pass on if you are not the strongest car through the first sector. So it could indeed come down to those pit stops, as we see Sam Sutton making a move on Mia Ott into turn number 3. Completes it rather comfortably in the end. I don't believe Ott has completed the pit stop yet though, so that is probably the reason for that. She tries to make the cutback move. We'll get a run down this main straight, flashing the lights at Sutton. Down the back straight we go into turn 4. She'll look to the outside, try to complete the move that's going to be ambitious, and it's not going to work. Around the outside at least, she backs out early, and it's going to be move completed for Sam Sutton.
Yeah, Sutton did a good job through the keyhole that time, really committed to the corner, and looking back at the lead of the race, Gallon, not quite as quick as Bird, but unflappable, has not made any mistakes that would present an opportunity for Bird, and I think BMW might be good on its tyres through all of the corners, but it's just not quite punching off the keyhole, not quite slippery enough maybe down the long straight to give an opportunity to Alexander Bird, who has just been following in those Ford wheel tracks basically since lap 1.
Yeah, it could be down to setup as well. Maybe unable to set up the car quite how they... Probably didn't set up the car ideally for the track. Maybe focusing too much on the corners and not giving themselves enough in a straight line, which may be what could be hampering them as we go for a big dive from Bird up the inside. Can't quite get the nose alongside far enough, but that puts Gallon off. A big wiggle. Now Bird's going to have the run as they head down towards the penultimate corner. Looks to the inside. Gallon goes defensive. This could open Gallon up to a move into the last corner, but no dice. Bird had a big lunge. Couldn't get it done this time by Bird. Looking to be a bit more aggressive now. Wants to get this move done.
And that's the biggest mistake we've seen from Luis Polo Gallon yet. Starting to get maybe just a little rustled by the pressure that has been just about non-stop. Bird could not get it done there, and it would be a very, very ambitious dive around that section of the track. But he's letting Gallon know that if it comes later in the race and he has to make a 50-50 move, he might well think about it. Of course, this has let Peasnick in third get just a little bit closer again within striking distance. If he can shave 2 seconds off his pit stop compared to these guys in front, just about nose to tail, first to fourth, and the pit stops must be getting closer for these drivers. Gallon has still got Bird just about as close behind as he was last lap around. I don't think he'll be fooled by a dive over the hill this time, though.
No, he's shown his hand at that corner as that's the car off in the gravel to the left of your shot there. Who is that? That's a 074 Trick Sim Sports car. Martin Silvassi goes back to 40th place with that spin. We'll get a motion simulation replay up for you here. See what is unfolded for Silvassi here. Around the section of the track and around went the SimSport car. A lot of drivers struggling for rear end stability around some of these corners and just losing it all by themselves.
Yeah, a lot of sweeping corners, a lot of changes of direction, so a pointy car can be good, but right up until the moment that you commit a little bit too hard to a corner like that. It's famine and feast for Trick Sim Sports right now. I mean, we saw that spin there for Silvassi. I think it was a long stop for Winkleman, but they've still got 2 cars in the top 4 and a shot at the win. I think Alexander Bird is looking the fastest of any of the drivers out here. He just did not qualify as well as Gallon, could not get around him on lap 1 and has been stuck there ever since. 17 minutes to go, maybe 14 laps. That's probably 14 opportunities for Alexander Bird, +1 for the pit stops. That's the biggest opportunity he's got because he has just not been able to get the move done on track.
It's proving incredibly difficult for him, and now he's coming under a lot of pressure from John Piesnik in the JPR racing car, who does have Bird's teammate of Winkleman right in behind him as well. So a bit of a Trick SimSport sandwich here for John Piesnik as we see them go around past the pit entry one more time. A little bit of contact, and into the lane does come Anthony Winkleman. First car from the top 4 to blink. Into the lane he comes. Let's see if he can make a good pit stop.
This could be critical. He was right there. He was being held up a tiny bit, and he decides to jump out of the traffic and jump into the lane. We look at some other battles that are going on. Darren Lobb, Ryan Jerrick, and this is also a tiny bit of a train as they come towards the start-finish line. And you know, I said this is a little bit of a shorter length lap than a lot of the other places we'd go to. In fact, it's basically exactly half the length of Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. So we're looking about half the lap times, about half the length. We've got the same number of cars, so everywhere you look, every camera angle, there is a race happening. There's just about 1 car for every 100 meters of circuit that there exists, and they're all a little bit closer than that, it seems.
Certainly are. Ross Rizzo, 11th place, Trick Sim Sports. Another Trick Sim Sports driver right up behind Justin Wallace of Race on Oz at the moment as they approach turn number 3. He's going to look for the dive, not going to do it. Wallace goes very deep on the brakes. Great braking performance, and Wallace able to fend off Rizzo for now.
Yeah, indeed. So we watch that one. We look a little bit further up. Jerrick, Lobb and Jerrick having a great race inside the top 10 here. Yet to pit, but running solidly inside the top 10. And I think Lobb's doing a good job with that Ferrari, which is not the most popular of the car. There's a lot more BMWs, but this is your leaders on the pit lane. I think Gallon has stayed out, but 2nd and 3rd are on the lane. It's do or die right now in their pit stops. Anthony Winkleman, where will he come out? He's already pitted. He's coming through the carousel, so he's an opportunity to gain some spots, but no shuffle there between Bird and Piesnik. Both take their fuel, both come out in the order that they entered the pit lane. I think Winkleman has jumped them.
Don't think he has. I think he's still right. He's at the back of this train of cars, whereas Bird and Piesnik have just managed to get themselves out at the very head of this train, which will be a good thing for them. They don't have to fight their way past these guys, which could have proved difficult. Winkleman a long pit stop, and that has cost him, unable to capitalise on the pit stop phase there. So he'll be ruined that one. Another Trick Sim Sports driver to fail, or not fail, wrong choice of words, sorry. Another Trick Sim Sports driver to have a bit of an issue in the pit stop phase and lose a bit of time there, as we'll see Gallon rounding the last few corners of the lap and does indeed dive into the pit lane. We'll see how he makes his pit stop. Can Bird finally get ahead of Luis Paulo Gallon for the lead of this race?
Yep, critical pit stop for Luis Paulo Gallon. He can't afford to not take enough fuel, but he can't afford to take 1 litre more than he needs. A couple more cars dive into the pit lane from in front, but this is Alexander Bird hoping to take the race lead. It's an interesting little pit exit here with the cars towards the inside of turn 1, but he has got it. Bird through into the lead. Gallon outlap in-lap might not have been good enough. Pit lane time might not have been good enough. He loses the lead. He'll grab what will shuffle through into second, I believe. Peasnick still in third, wasn't close enough to be able to grab it, and that's how fine the margins are here. Really, only a couple of tenths, half a second on the pit stop might have been enough for Peasnick to have grabbed second place. He now has to pressure Gallon on the track, and I think while these two battle and Peasnick thinks about going around the outside, this is a blessing for Alexander Bird, who might be able to saunter on down the road with the lead of this race when the pit stops cycle through and the field is cleansed.
Yeah, the Trixton sports driver will be loving this in his mirrors. He's capitalised beautifully on the pit stop phase. Got the move done that he couldn't complete on the track and will try to run away with it now. Got about a second and a half advantage. 0.3 per second longer stop for Luis Paulo Gallon compared to Alexander Bird, and that was all the difference he needed. Small margins in motor racing, small margins.
Yeah, that's what we were expecting all the way up into these pit stops, but now we've got them and there's only a few cars out there that have been able to go longer on the fuel. Everyone cycling through with 12 minutes to go, 10 laps to go, and you ask yourself, what could Luis Paulo Gallon do? What could John Peasnick do? I can't see either of them catching Alexander Bird unless all of this traffic creates an issue for Alexander Bird. He will be flashing all of those headlights, all of those fog lights, everything. I am effectively the race leader. Please do not hold me up. He will be trying to say. And I think Gallon is going to have 10 laps of trying as hard as he can to defend. More drama out there. Dominic Ferraris around, and we'll see modem simulation replay. How has that happened to the FT1 Motorsports driver? Well, over the crest here and just loses the rear on braking. That was something you mentioned earlier, Ryan. A couple drivers, their cars just behaving like that.
Yep, same spot as Silvassi. Slightly different outcome to Silvassi that we saw earlier. Unfortunately for Ferraris, he got into the inside wall. Won't be so much damage on that car, just a light hit, but nevertheless a big shame for the FT1 Motorsport driver. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, a recent signing to that team as well, so not the impression he would be looking to make.
Indeed. So on board now with Peasnick, everyone who has gone as long as they could on pit lane, on fuel in pit lane now. Seeing Jackson Susan Harlow, Zach Hamlin, Justin Wallace, and those like everyone taking their fuel except Brett Cananzi going as long as he can in the Eclipse Sim Sports 666. Fuel economy of the beast, it seems, for him right now. But I cannot see a way that he will go 10 more minutes when everyone else seems to think they need some fuel. But being scored in the lead of the race, and good on him at the moment, it's Bird, Gallon, Peasnick, Winkleman, and then Ross Rizzo behind. I believe Rizzo also yet to pit.
Yep, still a few drivers yet to make their pit stops throughout this field, a few trying to leave it as late as they possibly can, get those cars as light and theoretically as fast as they possibly can. Of course, when the fuel balance in the car changes, so does the balance of the car as well, which can make it harder or easier to drive. So that's something you've got to watch out for as well. When you stay out there as late as you can, go from a light fuel load to a bit of a substantially heavier fuel load as well.
Yeah, and there's not many Porsche 911 RSRs in the field here, but it's a car where the balance is definitely affected by the fuel burn because the engine in the back, but the fuel tank up the front. Most other mid-engine cars, like these Ford GT, have the fuel cell behind the driver, but in front of the engine. And so it's a pretty central weight distribution, not in the Porsche. And obviously that's not the favoured car because we don't see many of them, but here's a battle for second place. Luis Paulo Gallon not defending the inside, and in the end he goes a little bit deep, so Peasnick is going to try and go around the outside, over the top of the hill. Not this time, tries to cross it back underneath, going this way, that way, but just too difficult to pass there. Peasnick has not managed to get past Gallon for second step on the podium yet. It's certainly looking like the balance of the car is a bit stronger for him. Gallon will need to be very careful with how he places the car, how he defends, and be able to keep that driver behind for 7 more laps if he needs to, but not if he makes any mistakes, and not if he's not heads up about his driving. Through the carousel they go. car to the side of the road there does not impede them, and it'll be 7 laps to go now.
7 laps to go, 8 minutes and 15 seconds left in this race, and all race long it seems like Luis Paulo Gallen has been defending from the car behind. First it was your current race leader Alexander Bird. He kept him behind, but the pit stop phase really did him in there, and now he's having to defend as well from Joe Peasnick with back in the field at Darren Lobb in 10th place for DPI Racing, trying to hold off Ryan Jerrick in the Eclipse Sim Sports car. They're running pretty close to go as well as they make their way out of turn number 1. Down the short chute, heading towards turn number 2, the crested right-handed corner. A tricky one to get right, this one. You can set yourself up with a wide entry and a late apex to get a run down the straight. It looks like Jerrick tried to do that as well. Runs the right side, the left side of the car off the track, which seems to be a common theme out there today. Don't think he's going to be close enough. He might be close enough for a big dive if he wants it, but probably a bit too far out from the finish for that sort of driving at the moment.
Rallycross was at that section of the track on Memorial Day weekend here at Mid-Ohio, but these drivers avoiding doing too much rallycross this time, just 2 wheels in the dirt it was for Jerrick, and these two were battling when we checked in with them last time. They've taken their pit stops and once again battling in the same order at Ferrari, keeping the BMW behind.
Yeah, 45-minute race. Short race does mean you kind of not fighting with the same person for the entire race, which is something we've seen today. There's someone else off in the background. Who was that? The 003 car, Dominic Ferraris, off again. This race has gone from bad to worse for him. Another spin, and he might retire that car. We'll see what he does. Back to the battle for 10th place. Bit of a gap being opened up now by that car in front. Back to Ryan Jerrick. See if he can capitalise on that move and try and pull away.
Yeah, Lobb with about as much gap, about as much breathing room as he's had in a long time, and we'll see if he can hold on to that one. A little bit further up though, Gallon and Peasnick continue to battle for 2nd place, and Alexander Bird is checking out. You can see it on that shot. Peasnick's not as close as he was earlier to Gallon, so gap to the leader. Gallon 3 seconds behind. Bird, with 5 minutes to go, is starting to run away with this one, but the podium positions are not settled yet. Plenty of battles going on though. Like we said, a relatively short length of lap and plenty of cars out there means that there's racing for everyone. One of them, Solowski and Gasul, for 19th and 20th place. I'm sure I've said those words before, but finished it with battling for the lead and battling for the podium. These are 2 drivers we expect to see much higher up the order than 19th and 20th. Both of them have not had the race they've wanted. Both of them had some issues, and some on lap 1, a little bit of contact, trying to recover. Both of them are, but they are well down the order, having their own little scrap.
Quality right throughout this field is now looking up the inside at turn 1. He goes, a fantastic move, a little bit of a hip check there. Quarter panel to quarter panel is up in front. Someone goes right out sideways. That's Cody Bircher for One Performance Racing out on the grass, rallycross style. And now Reese Gasil's going to run on a bit wide through turn 2, opening the door for Kozlowski to get up the inside, but no dice there. Will this mean Gasil's got to run down this back straightaway, trying to get ahead of Cody Bircher? Not going to be close enough this time by Izzy. Always having a look. Bircher, a very late defensive move, forcing Gasil to the outside. Can he keep his nose up there for the next corner? No, he can't. And now Kozlowski looks to the outside as well.
Kozlowski just doesn't find quite enough grip on the outside over the crest of the hill though, and both of these guys being held up a little bit by Cody Bircher, who is defending for all he is worth, because he knows that there is just 4 minutes left now. This race winding down. It wound up very, very well. The tension built towards the pit stops, and now it's the sprint to the end. And Bircher battling to hold on to 18th place in front of Gasul. And Gasul, well, he's shown that he can throw one down the inside of turn 1. Not the most popular overtaking spot we've seen, but he's not afraid of trying it. Won't be this time, but he's clearly go for any opportunity, and he's so close as they head down towards the keyhole. Bircher continues to defend the inside. So around the outside, it is possible to go. He's squeezes him all the way down. Gasol tries to get a better exit, gives him a cheeky little bump draft, but it doesn't work out on the grass and sideways for Gasol, and he might lose that spot. It might be someone else's turn to try and crack Cody Bircher.
He tried the cut back, but got on the power too well, too early, got into the back of him and hurt himself in the process. Goes back in behind Kozlowski, see if Kozlowski can get by Bircher now, as you mentioned, in the battle for what is 18th place. A fantastic battle for 18th place. As I mentioned, quality right down the field right now.
Yeah, indeed. Continue watching this one. Switch up. Lob and Jarek battling for the final spot in the top 10. Car wide of the grass in front of them. They both get through, and a little bit of a wiggle there from Jarek. High speed commitment through turn 1. And, well, it gives Lob just a little bit more breathing room behind. Rizzo has made his pit stop. He's now trying to work his way up after the issues we did catch from him earlier. He gets a great run at Daniel Misdale. Misdale's going to the right-hand side of the circuit. Is there a BMW width there? No, but Ross Rizzo will keep his foot planted anyway. And he did not manage to get to the inside then. Tries for it now. Big defense from Misdale, and Rizzo around again. That's a very difficult spot to be around too. You can actually beach the car on the curbing there. Rizzo gets away with it. He's not beached, but he's lost a couple of spots, so not a good round 2 for Ross Rizzo.
Maybe a little bit over-aggressive there down that package road. He tried to force his way to the inside. There wasn't any room. He decided to make room 4 wheels off the track in the end, and a bit too aggressive in the braking zone as well, losing the rear as we've seen so many times today. The battle out front heating up just a bit. Can John Piesnik get to the back of Gallon and pass him? But Alexander Bird, a comfortable margin, about 3 to 4 seconds over Gallon in second, Piesnik in third as mentioned, and Winkelman, Trick Sim Sport, still running around in 4th place.
Yeah, if anything, it looks like Piesnik has faded a little bit, and maybe Winkelman might be able to catch him and battle for third. It's now more than 1 second between second and third, as you saw with our little graphics. What can Winkelman do? Remains to be seen, but from what was an inseparable 4-car battle before the pit stops, there's now just some little margins between Bird, Gallon, Piesnik, and Winkelman. Running in the top 5, Sam Sutton doing well with his new team here, recently with EXG Motorsports, and he's going to have to try and fend off Jackson Suzlin-Harlow potentially, who is just lurking behind. So plenty of battles for everyone, and one we were looking at earlier, Bircher, Solowski, and Gasol. Who can do it? And Bircher just looking very, very difficult to pass.
Yeah, it's a very difficult track to pass on. Bircher taking full advantage of that. The final lap now underway for these drivers. These guys have to cross the start-finish line one more time before they begin their final lap, but our race leaders are on the final lap as they make their way towards the penultimate couple of corners. Kozlowski not close enough into here, and that's a spin for Adam Gardner, a second spin in this race for Gardner. I'm going to replay up for you, brought to you by Modem Simulation. What has happened to Gardner? He's lost it on the rears. It's a common theme tonight. The Mach 1 Esports car goes around.
Maybe just a little bit too much curb for him there, but indeed on the final lap is our race leader, Alexander Bird. Just a couple more corners to go for him. He's got a little bit of breathing room, worked the strategy perfectly, had a great in-lap, a great out-lap, took exactly the right amount of fuel he needed. That was what he needed to do to jump Luis Polo Gallon, get the track position. Battle continues here. Bircher, Solowski. So side by side, Bircher has the inside to defend, but out the final corner comes Alexander Bird and rightfully flashes his headlights with excitement because he is the winner of round 2. Luis Polo Gallon from pole position could not convert. He gets second. Third goes to Piesnik, and Anthony Winkelman will be 4th. Little battle for 5th here will come to the line, but Sam Sutton will not be caught for 5th place by Jackson Suzlin-Harlow, who gets 6th position. And the top 10 also coming across the line. 7th was Healy Kananzi. A good race for him running that strategy long, and Zach Hanlon holds on to 9th, and in that battle we saw for 10th, it was no surpassing Darren Lobb. So we watch this battle towards the end, Ryan, because this for 18th place has been scintillating. I don't think they're going to get past Bircher though.
Nah, Birch has done enough. He's held on to 18th place. Fantastic racing on that last lap, looked like, on those three drivers. There's still a battle going on for 26th place. Christopher Norton trying to get Benjamin Johnson. Not going to be close enough. No overtakes possible in the final corner. Johnson holds on for 26th place. 27th for Norton. Side-by-side contact between Chris Dale and Cameron Dance. And there's all sorts of cars almost making contact again through the final corner. More contact made. Chris Dale goes into the
Out of fuel. Josh Pervine out of fuel, and that's why he got a big bump there from Cam Dance, who was trying to get through. Pervine has lost 4 positions. Be interesting to see a little replay of his final couple of corners, because he parked it in the carousel, and the drivers behind weren't quite sure what to do, and that's why Cameron Dance almost shoved him out of the way. Here comes the replay, and it's up ahead of this battle. Pervine, at this point, already coasting. Too wide, the battle, little hip check. Dance holds it on the outside. They're approaching this slow car. Which way do they go? And Dance realizes it, and it almost just gives him a little bit of a bump out of the way here. Puts him in front of the other car, and chaos out of the final corner. Pervine not taking enough fuel. Well, thank our sponsor, Epiroc, and we'll get one more word from them before we come to our results.
I appreciate that there's diversity in the workforce, and Australia is becoming a prominent influence in this area with 4 females on the management team. This is what inspires me.
Well, here is our finishing order, and Alexander Bird 3 seconds clear of Luis Paulo Gallon in what was a fantastic race-long battle for the lead. In the end, it was that famous Trick Sim Sports strategy that helped Alexander Bird wrestle the top step of the podium. That podium completed by John Peasnick, who had to hold off Anthony Winkleman towards the end. Winkleman gets 4th spot. 5th is Sam Sutton, who had just a little bit of a quiet race, I think, sneaking his way into the top 5 for EXG Motorsports. Jackson Suzlin Harlow for Altus Esports gets 6th. Michael Healy 7th. Brett Cananzi, going long as he could on the fuel, gets 8th position. 9th went to Zach Hanlon, who had quite the exciting race for himself. And 10th was Darren Lobb.
Ryan Jarrett just missed out on a top 10 position, 6/10 behind a Lobb in the end. Missdale and Reese Keane 12th and 13th. Briggs in 14th. Justin Wallace came home in 15th place. Bradley Ratu back there in 16th for EXG Motorsport. Ross Rizzo, Trick Sim Sports, in the wars a couple of times today. 17th place in the end for him. Then it was Bircher, Sislowski, and Gasol rounding out that top 20 with that fantastic battle we witnessed a few times towards the end of that race.
Mia Ott gets 21st. 22nd goes to Richard Hunter. 23rd is Josh Burden. 24th, Philip Worley. We're getting towards some of the last cars on the lead lap here with Darren Huxham, Benjamin Johnson, Christopher Norton, Carl Raper, Dave Clements, and Cameron Dance gets that 30th position, pushing Josh Pervine out of the way. Robert Chrisdale and Hayden Benefield also get across the line in front of him. In the end, Adam Gardner also gets around, and Josh Pervine was the last car on the lead lap and out of fuel. So the remaining positions were then Rob Carmichael, Martin Silvassi, Thomas Hinds, Alex Court, Neil Pearson, Daniel Cheney, and 41st was David Mulhall, and then Reese Harnell 2 laps down, and then effectively it's everyone else here is retirements. Dominic Ferraris 8 laps down, Nikolaev 15 laps down, Lee Vandenberg, Trent Thomas, Cameron Stubber, races to forget for those drivers.
Yep, that was a very good race that they put on for the lead of the race in the early stages, and through the middle, pit stop phase shook them out a bit, but in the end, it was Alexander Bird who was able to come out on top with a great pit stop to put him ahead of Gallon, and that proved decisive in the end, didn't it?
Yeah, indeed. It all boiled up towards that pit stop strategy in mid-Ohio. gave us a great race. And I think there's several types of machinery you can have that will give you a great race here.
Yes.
Here come our top three. We're going to have a word with them, our podium. And our winner was Alex Bird. And Alex, the pit stop time there, absolutely critical to get the jump and get around Luis Polo Gallon.
Yeah, I saw that Lewis was starting to struggle with tyres, and like, to be honest, what he was doing in the Ford at this track was insane. That shouldn't be possible. But we came up behind a couple of back markers, and I'd seen Ant box, and I just went, yeah, you know what, that's the right choice, and jumped in, and was able to come out in, honestly, just fluked some clear track and put in a good lap and jumped over, yeah.
In Mid-Ohio, a pretty short lap, good turnout, more than 40 cars in this race. How did that make the traffic towards the end? Because everywhere we looked, there was cars.
Yeah, the traffic was pretty compliant, to be honest. The guys were really good at jumping out of our way. The only thing was about 3 or 4 times I'd be coming up to one of the crests and there'd be smoke on the other side, and you're just kind of going over that going, please no. And especially after week 1 where we had the same thing.
Well, a big bag of points in round 2. Plenty of rounds still to go in Epiroc SSA. Your expectations, can you get on the top step of the podium again, or was it just Mid-Ohio flattering you?
I really like these rhythm tracks, so Sonoma and Mid-Ohio, and I think that they suit me a lot. I'd probably struggle more with the tracks where you sort of drive along for 800 metres and then you've got to hit a perfect braking point. That's not really my thing. So we'll see what else is on the schedule and whether or not we can knock together a setup, but I imagine we'll be thereabouts.
Well, from yourself and from Trick Sim Sports, anyone you would like to thank, any little shout-outs you'd like to give here on the iRacing Esports Network?
Yeah, I think particularly Pete Jasinowitz, who's recently joined our team, doing a fantastic job of helping us out. Trent Thomas as well has been been on his team for a long time, and he deserves a shout-out, especially after last week. And also Trick Custom Fabrications, Trick Sim Sports, and Not Rider Design.
Well, once again, congratulations. Thanks for coming in to have a word with us. And now Ryan Jones is going to speak with our second place finisher, Luis Polo Gallon.
All right, well, congratulations, Luis, second place. You rebounded pretty well from what was probably a disappointing opening rounds of the season for your last time out at Sonoma. You put it on pole position, but it looked like the entire race you were just defending from the car behind. Was that, as Alex mentioned, a bit of a tyre issue, or maybe a bit of a setup issue for the race? You weren't comfortable?
Oh, thanks, guys. First, congratulations to Alex and John to finish the podium. Yeah, man, I was struggling the whole race with tire issue, and I knew it was going to be difficult to hold Alex, especially because he was saving fuel for free, honestly. And I actually couldn't save fuel because otherwise he would just overtaking me. I said, as soon as he stopped, I'm going to try to stop as well, but I knew it was going to be difficult. Yeah, disappointed first round and disappointed again for putting on pole and didn't quite, finish the job, but I'm pretty happy with second place.
Well, second place, certainly nothing to sneeze about. And, well, you've had, as I mentioned, not the fantastic first round. Second place at the second round, so you're improving already. What are your expectations for the rest of the season? Looking to get a few wins, maybe contend for the championship?
Yes, definitely. I'll try, my best, as always. I think we are pretty close, in pace. I'm speaking like, Alex, he's been really fast. John, we know he's quick. And I'll be in the mix, and yeah, if I can grab some wins, yeah, hopefully I'm gonna be there.
Well, we will certainly look forward to watching you battle on for the rest of the season. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
First, I would like to shout out to Cameron for building up my new computer. he's from Perth as well, and he traveled from down south to my place, which is almost like 70 kilometers, just to build up my sim. He did a fantastic job, and yeah, shout out to all the guys at Scal BMX and Alpine Racing as well. So let's keep it up.
All right, thank you very much. Congratulations once again, David. I believe we've got our third place man, John Piesnick, in the chat as well.
We do. John, third place on the podium. You happy with that, or was there more for you?
Thanks, mate. Yeah, no, I'm very happy with third place, mate. To be honest, there wasn't much more there. As the guys have just said previously, our pace between us all were pretty much identical. It was who was having the best lap or the best little section at the time of the race. So I thought there was a chance there to get second, have a little bit of a fight there with Louis, but just obviously very hard to get the pass done, and the pace wasn't there at the end, so it was more just surviving and hanging on to third. And yeah, mate, very happy with that, just to keep the points ticking up, and yeah, look forward to a little bit bigger open track.
What were your thoughts about the fuel in this race? We saw one driver run out of fuel on the final lap. Obviously, you don't want to do that. Were you thinking about saving the fuel, and how close were you willing to cut it?
To be honest, I wasn't thinking about it at first because I had no time at all. With four of us so close and Anthony behind me, I was probably driving a little bit erratically. I wasn't really doing it properly. But when it come time, yes, obviously I tried to save as much as I could, and yeah, obviously my car ran out just after the last corner on the cooldown lap, so I had nothing left, and I used all I could.
Well, on the podium is still a good result, still a good bag of points. And is that BMW still proving to be, I guess, one of the better all-round GTEs? Are you happy with that choice of manufacturer?
Being honest, I did speak to Louis about this during the week. I do regret choosing it because I got it for an all-rounder, but it's also a little bit frustrating in certain aspects for how I sort of like to drive. So I do regret that decision. But I'll suck it up and continue on. But overall, still happy with the car. And obviously, it's just up to me now to find a little bit more out of it, and hopefully just keep fighting with these guys up the front.
Well, I wish you best of luck, and hopefully I'll be there to see some later rounds of this season. Shout outs, thanks. Who gets you racing?
Just a big shout out to mate Reese again. He helped me out massively this one, as I was not really up to speed towards the end and was struggling. So he helped me out a fair bit to get it across the line there. And yeah, that's about it. So, and obviously thanks to you guys for the great broadcast.
Thanks so much. Well, that just about wraps up everything we've got to cover here from SimSpeed TV on the iRacing Esports Network of the Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. Fantastic race here at Mid-Ohio. And while that wraps up this race, all the future broadcasts of this season will be by us and here on the iRacing Esports Network, so make sure to catch them. We've also got more broadcasts coming up from SimSpeed TV. This Saturday, we've got the Majors Series, and then for the Down Under Graphics Australian Sprint Car Championship, they're going to Eldora, and Monday, V8 Supercar Championship is at VIR, so plenty more. Make sure you check out our social media. Make sure you subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. I've been David Haynes, that's been Ryan Jones, and this has been another SimSpeed TV production.
Gotta love this time of year. Only one can be champion. Let's go playoff racing. I said, hey, there's no surrender. Let 'em hear my battle of the best sim racers. $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going in the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go! Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?